You ready? Awesome, here we go, going live. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to open tonight's school committee meeting of September 20th, 2018. First order of business on the agenda is our minutes from the last meeting. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion on the minutes from September 6th, I think it was.
Motion's been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll take a vote. All in favor of approving the minutes, September 6th? Motion passes 3-0. Hi, Bethlyn.
Did we all?
Wow, that's a really hot mic tonight.
Feels like there's feedback. I don't know if that.
That's what I
Yeah.
thought.
2 minutes.
How louder the better.
I make a motion to
Thank you.
also approve the minutes from August 30th.
Yes.
I was going to take them as two motions. Thank you.
Okay, so-
August 30th, motion's been made. Second. Mary, thank you. I looked at them. They made sense. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 3-0. Thank you. So we're going to take things a little bit out of order tonight. We have Detective Mancuso here with us tonight. She is our school resource officer, and she would just like to introduce herself to the community and talk a little bit about the work that she's doing with our schools. So actually, what I might have you do is if you wanted to take the mic there in the front and just swivel it around, you could still face the audience, but then the people at home who watch it on, we have a huge following on YouTube, so
We're trying to get our hits up.
I think the last meeting had 7 hits, so.
All right, let's hope for 10. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Trista Mancuso. I've been with Maynard PD for 4 years, almost 5. So in July, I had gone into the position of juvenile detective school resource officer. Obviously, during the summer, I kind of got acclimated with that new role, where we're also in a smaller department. My role is kind of split between the two, so I am doing the best that I can going from each school, which is great. They're all 1, 2, 3. So I've kind of gotten into a good regimen in the morning, but for those of you who haven't seen me yet, I'm split between the 3. I have an office also at the high school, so my hours there kind of still fluctuating, but mostly Thursdays in the afternoon. So for the students to come in and know that if they want to talk, I'm there. But again, my role in the schools is primarily for school safety. We've talked about what we've done so far, and I think we're at a great place. Overall, the schools and the town, we're working together between the ALICE drills, making sure the schools themselves are set up the way they need to be. Obviously, there's some glitches, but we're aware of what needs to change. And at this point, we've gotten through one drill and minimal feedback from parents saying their kids were, upset about it and traumatized. And ultimately, with our kids, and I have 2 small children too, you want them to go to school knowing that if something should happen, they're in good hands and they've done the drill and they know what to do, as well as the staff. So we've gone through that, and I think another huge component is building good relationships. So I'm there mornings and afternoons, and overall just trying to start building good relationships with the kids and obviously the staff. But an open door for communication, and also in the PD, so can be reached there. But any questions? Yes.
I have a question about, are you, with your new full-time role, implementing or maybe thinking of implementing any programs for cyber safety with kids that are getting laptops, internet access at early
That's a great
ages?
question. So this was my 3rd year doing the Summer Youth Academy, and this summer we had the district attorney's office come out, and they did a presentation on cyber safety as well as positive choices. So basically the kids were given scenarios and they were asked what they would do, which was great because obviously no one's going to say the same thing. And with peers, what you see a lot is their decision changes based on what their friends do. So we had a district attorney come out and did that, so we've actually scheduled that for the schools. So that's going to be happening in October. We've also kind of gone into what's appropriate for the high school age, so we're scheduling something and working with Principal Caruso and Kara Janus for a presentation on right now educating them on the negative effects of vaping. So obviously it's going to be different from the elementary school to the middle school the high school, but overall cyber safety, and more importantly, we kind of educate them on bullying as well as cyber safety, so that's something that we have scheduled that will take place in October. Yes. Anything else?
Trustee, can I just ask a question? So one of my big, don't laugh, I'm always inquisitive, what can I tell you? One of my big concerns that keeps escalating even more is the vaping, the whole
Yes.
vaping scenario. Are we doing any educating on the students and that about, you know, the dangers of it and all of that?
Yes, so that's a great question. Last year, they had one of the companies come out and they talked with, it was an after-school, more informational session with the educators, and Principal Caruso and I actually just talked about this week. So we have spoken with the DA's office and getting kind of similar to what we scheduled for the cyber safety. They're going to be coming out in October and doing an educational seminar on vaping
Excellent.
as well. And then more importantly, directed towards in the school what the consequences are. Because more importantly, kids are like, you know, it's an hour presentation, half of them aren't listening, but if it's more realistic to a lot of the athletes and there's consequences, you're going to miss, you know, however many games, that seems more realistic and kind of in their face, like, probably not a good idea. So we
Excellent.
certainly will have that scheduled.
How about middle school? I'm hearing it's also
So,
happening in
to
the
be
middle school.
honest, I haven't looked into it for middle school. That's kind of a tough age group, and we're still trying to figure out what is the most appropriate age. I think for right now, and obviously it changes based on the needs and the current issues. So last year we had a lot of issues with sexting and bullying, so we focused on that. But this year, right now, we're going to start out with the cyber safety and the smart choices, and that over what we did this summer were all scenarios realistic to that. One of them was smoking, the other was whether or not you should get in the car with someone who's been drinking, and then the third was friends smoking marijuana. So they kind of base it on what the age group is, and I spoke with Principal Costello, and he had said that we'll probably do 4 and 5, just cyber safety, and then 6, 7, and 8, we can certainly fluctuate to, you know, what the needs are then. But it's always certainly situational, and we'll see where it takes us over the year.
Excellent, fantastic. I know I've said it before, but I'm very excited that you are doing this and
I
very
was
grateful,
glad. I really
grateful
enjoy it.
to the police department for providing this resource to
Yeah,
the
it's great.
schools.
I've done a lot with the kids just outside of it, just with on patrol, but I'm pretty excited that that's my primary role now.
Yeah, what are you most looking forward to for this year and being in this role?
That's a great question. So I have a lot of kind of different roles right now, but overall, just having the availability. Before I would come up to the schools in between calls and, you know, when it was quiet, but now like we've had High Five Friday, which is great. I have kids, I love kids. I love, you know, patrolling, so I can do both. And just, I think one of the biggest things is, so I come from a family of law enforcement, and when I was a kid, my grandfather was like, you know, a big figure in town, and his biggest thing was, you know, you gotta interact with people the way that you would want to be interacting with, and treat people how you would, and he just was always, you know, at football games, and I think that's important for just building strong relationships, and we're in a small town, you have the availability to do it in this role. You started in, you know, elementary school, middle school, and that's, you see kids in high school, and they're less likely to kind of give you a hard time and make poor choices and get into trouble if you build strong relationships from the beginning. So that's overall, I think, what I'm looking forward to.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Great, thank you so
We're all
much.
very excited to have you.
Yeah, thank you for coming out and joining us tonight.
And she's been a great resource for the safety committee now, too. You've been on the safety committee, and we're getting a lot of things done, so pretty excited. We just had a safety committee meeting earlier, so.
Awesome.
It's a good start to the year. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Go
Great.
home, be with your family.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you so much.
Good night. Thank you.
You too.
She was joking earlier about all the things that she'd rather do than get up in front of a room and talk, but brilliant job. Thank you, Detective. All right, so taking things back in the somewhat normal order, chairperson's report. I want to take a moment to just thank the teachers, the administrators, and the students in all 3 buildings for a really positive start to the academic year. This is my first chance to sort of address the community because I missed last meeting. I know that there's been some concern and some frustration in certain buildings about schedules not being finalized and some hard choices being made, but I do want to swing it back to the positive and really celebrate what amazing offerings we're giving to our young people in this town right now, from computer science to language to the art and the wellness and all of the things that we're offering. The fact that the schedules aren't finalized is a very hard thing, but it's almost a good problem to have because we're offering so many things to our young people. So I do want to celebrate that. I do want to take a moment to acknowledge some of the recent hot button topics that the board has been hearing about, running the gamut from mold. And Aaron, thank you for coming out to talk to us, and I know you're on the agenda in a few minutes. To busing, to the bleachers at Alumni Field, to there's been a lot of things the first few weeks of school, and I want to thank the community for first taking the time to advocate for the things that they feel most strongly about, and I do want to take the moment to also remind people that for the most part, we as the school committee are trying really hard to get back into the best practices of directing you to the best person in the district to address those concerns to, so that we're functioning almost as a clearinghouse. Because unfortunately, our ability to problem solve is sometimes somewhat limited, and oftentimes it's limited to simply pointing the person with the concern in the proper direction of the administrator or the building leader to talk to. So I just want to remind the community of that. And finally, on a positive note, I want to thank Dawn and the other members of the board who have been working so hard to prepare our October 3rd Parent Forum. It's at 6:30 p.m. Dawn, I believe it's in the Fowler Auditorium?
I think it's right here.
It's right here in this room, okay. And thank you for all the time and effort and energy that you are pouring into it. And I know that you've been working with Bethlyn and Morrow, and it's awesome. So thank you for doing that. And for the people in the room who maybe didn't see the social media feed, I'm going to take a minute to plug it. It's an opportunity in a less formal setting for the members of the Maynard community to come out and engage with us. This is a formal setting. Sometimes concerns are brought to our attention, and all we can say is thank you for that concern, and there's not a lot we can do in the moment. But the October 3rd Forum, I think the goal is really to talk about what's going well, get a sense of what things people are concerned about in the community, and have a dialogue about the best possible path going forward from there. So thank you for that, Dawn. I know that this has been a pet project of yours, and I really, really, really appreciate it. And I believe that's it for my chairperson's report. So, Dr. Girardi, what do you have for us tonight?
I've got a lot.
Okay.
And the most important topic is mold, because this kind of happened after we set the agenda, so it's not on the agenda, but I can do it as my report because I've been heavily involved in it. And like you said, thanks to Aaron, he came in because he's been working with me on it, so I appreciate that, Aaron. Before I get to that, though, there's a few administrative updates I have to do first, as you know, for formalities, like the field trip administrative regulation number 651 authorizes me to approve field trips that are greater than 75 miles away, going to another state, or including overnight stays. It does require me, though, to notify the school committee. And so I wanted to just let you know that we have our Latin club is going to the Mass Junior Classical League, and you have the form that they filled out, in Barnstable, which is more than 75 miles away. Okay. They've done this several years, for quite a few years now. It's a huge success. They always win the Spirit Award, so I'm rooting for them this time too. And it's pretty exciting that our students are having these opportunities. So, of course, I did approve it, but I wanted to notify you of it as well.
Thank you.
Then food service. I know at the last meeting we talked a little bit about the quality of food service. And I just wanted to explain to everybody that part of the problem was they weren't able to open up all the stations because they were still hiring staff. And so my understanding is they have been able to open up the deli station. They have been able to open up the taco bar here. And so they're able to offer a better variety. And I think that was a big concern. Like all food service programs, even regardless of what company does it or if you have an in-house, now with the new USDA nutrition standards, you have to have wheat bread for your pizza,
Whole grains.
Whole grains. So, while I personally really don't love wheat pizza, I know, there are healthier people who really do believe that's a good thing, so sometimes the
It's more
quality.
salt. It's really good with salt.
It's so, it does have to be certain, certain. But my understanding is our new food service director, she's really good at being creative with food, and she makes a mean prune paste chocolate cookie that you would never know has prunes in it.
Is that
So,
part of our positive behavior?
I know.
no, supposedly she's gonna convince me that it tastes good, and I love chocolate, so we'll see.
I think if you
But-
look at the kids, like, if you picked up, prune cookie.
So anyway, I think she's going to try and make healthy foods that taste good as well, but she is a nutritionist, she's a certified nutritionist, and I'm hopeful that the students will find the quality will be better and it still be healthy. So another important thing is everybody should probably turn their ringers off, everybody who's a resident. Andrew Scribner McLean, our assistant town administrator, notified me that the town's going to be doing a reverse 911 in about 10 minutes at 7:30. And he said that I could give you the heads up early. The reverse 911 is actually going to be about blasting at the 129 Parker Street project. And so they're going to give you these details, but I'll read them to you now. That it's a major construction project underway at 129 Parker Street. A1 drilling and blasting out of Uxbridge, Mass. has been fully permitted and will be blasting the 129 Parker Street site. Approximately, it's pretty close to the high school, I think 1,000 feet away. And the fire department personnel will be on site from 7 a.m. until completion. The blasting is estimated to occur between 1 and 3 p.m. A1 has also hired additional technicians to stage the area between the site and schools to maintain security. And so there'll be the blasting tomorrow and then blasting sometime later that next week, and they'll let us know when their next phase of blasting will happen. And so the assistant town administrator wanted me to tell the principal and give him the heads up just in case there was testing or something going on. And Principal Karajanis wrote to his staff, I'm going to read because he's always so clever. I was told that blasting, I'm sorry, where is it? This will sound quite familiar to staff members who were here when the new Maynard High School was being constructed. We were able to continue classes at the old building even while blasting occurred where the new building is now, and that was much further than 1,000 feet away. In short, for many of us, this is just a blast from the past. But just for the residents, the concern is that, sometimes when there's blasting, I think there was like a project in Sudbury and people in Maynard felt a rumble. So I know the town really wants to get that information out. The schools are aware of it and they're ready for it. So I wanted to just let everybody know that. And thanks to Andrew, you got the information 10 minutes early. So that brings us to probably the most important topic tonight, which are the mold concerns at Green Meadow. And in regard to the mold concerns, the DPH has inspected our schools in the past. In 2011, those recommendations were implemented. This year, we had several concerns raised by staff about air quality, and not only did we bring in the DPH, but we also brought in additional testing company called ASPA Environmental. So the most important result we got back was there was no toxic black mold, and the majority of classrooms and areas actually had lower levels of mold than when you're walking outside, because we actually tested right outside the building as well. So those were interesting findings, and I've learned a little bit about mold, and Aaron could tell us a lot more about mold. But what I learned through this process from the highest state authority, the Department of Public Health, is that there is no standard for what indoor quality is. And on a personal level, I've had allergies ever since I was a toddler. So for about 50 years, I've had seasonal allergies, and I had myself tested. I was allergic to maple trees and ragweed, but I'm also allergic to mold. And for 50 years, give you an idea how old I am, I've always had allergies at the beginning of the fall, spring and fall, maybe for a week, maybe 2 at the most. This summer, I have had allergies all summer long. The itchy eyes, the headaches, everything. So I feel for those people who have been feeling the effects of the mold, but it's outdoor as much as it is indoor. So I guess that's my level of knowledge. Aaron, I don't know if you'd like to answer any other questions or any other details that I may have missed, or if parents would like to ask questions, maybe you and I can help them with the answers that we've gotten, because you've done most of the talking to the companies, but they've told you what precautions we should be taking and those sort of things.
Yeah. Do you want me to give an overview, or I know you?
Yeah, if you
Yes,
want.
Aaron, absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Do you want me to address the board or the public, or how would you like to?
No, the board, you should,
Okay.
Address the board in your
Go
voice
sideways.
projects.
Very comfortable, like.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, you want me to sit up? I can sit up front.
Yeah, that works.
Oh, sure.
That makes a lot of sense.
Great idea.
You work for the town?
I've done all this time, that's excellent. Because no one's sitting with Mary. I don't know what she's.
I'm not taking it personally.
We're missing them.
You gotta be careful, you sit up here and you never leave.
Oh, that's a good one. It's not the system. It's right over.
All right, good evening, everybody. My name's Aaron McCloskey. I'm the Director of Public Works for the town of Maynard. Thank you. So one of the divisions of Public Works is facilities management, facilities maintenance. So my department oversees building maintenance townwide. That includes public school buildings. So Dr. Girardi and the school committee brought me into the situation early on. So 2 Fridays ago, I believe the school administration was made aware of an individual health concern related to mold. That employee obviously works at Green Meadow School, and so without getting into too many details there, we took an initial action. There's communications back and forth. The first thing that we did internally, we did a sweep with town of Maynard employees through the building to see if there was any visual, if we could see any visual signs of mold or mold growth in the building. We didn't see any of that. The next step that we took, we reached out to the Department of Public Health. They have the Division of Indoor Air Quality Inspectors. Those inspectors have actually been out to the school district, as Dr. Girardi stated before, at Green Meadow in 2011, and a couple of inspections previous to that. Most recently, they're in this building 2 years ago to do an indoor air quality inspection. So we brought that inspector out. The inspector looked through the building. They didn't see any visual signs of mold or mold growth, and they actually encouraged us not to do any mold testing, airborne testing, because there's no standard for indoor air mold. Mold is found outside as well as inside, and the biggest indicator that you have a public health issue or a health issue in the building would be visual signs of mold growing on surfaces, which was not found. The only thing that we did see in a back closet of a IT room, I believe it was, there's a stained ceiling tile, an old ceiling tile, so we removed that immediately. It was replaced with a clean ceiling tile. The Department of Public Health, they spoke with the individual that had the concerns, as well as administration and staff, and will be providing a report to us within 2 to 4 weeks of what other recommendations they had. Those recommendations are going to include like regular maintenance of the univents and the HVAC system, changing out of filters, not blocking filters, closing windows and doors to prevent any mold spores from blowing from outside inside, to allow the HVAC system to work correctly. Obviously, repairing any roof leaks as they might come up quickly, replacing any stained or wet ceiling tiles, removing of standing water in different locations, whether it's from mopping or leaking faucets or anything like that. None of those things were observed during the inspection, but it's kind of best management practices and things that were identified in 2011 during the inspection when they came through, that we've since corrected. Green Meadow is an old building. The area of the concern where it originated is the oldest section, built in 1955. There have been roof leaks in the past. We've done a lot of work. I believe in 2015 the town allocated $900,000 to do major repairs that included roof repairs at this building as well as Green Meadow. A large section of the roof was replaced at Green Meadow, and as recently as last summer we did some major patching at Green Meadow. After that, we notified I think Dr. Girardi from his office, they sent out communication that we brought the DPH inspector in and we didn't find anything, and that the DPH didn't feel that there was a public health or safety risk due to mold. And then, the administration decided to take it one step further and do indoor air quality testing, which was recommended from DPH not to do because there's no standard. You're going to find it whether you do it outside, inside, football field, classroom, municipal building, your home, you're going to find mold spores in the air. So they did that testing. So we did samples. We did testing in every classroom in the kindergarten and preschool ring. We did sampling at the front entrance in the foyer, staff development room, and some outside samples as well. There were 3 locations that had either equal to or just above number of spores per cubic meter of air found inside the building as outside the building. It was also observed during the inspection that doors were left open during the day, and we left any doors and windows we saw open during the day, open during the inspection. So we got, inspection was done during kind of normal occupancy conditions. We did do the inspection just after school was released, so there were no students in there, but it was immediately after the students left the building that we did the inspections. There's kind of fans blowing around, blowing the spores. The spores that we did find in the building are similar, were the same type that were found outside the building. They're found, in gardens and forests, in areas where you have kind of compost or plants decomposing. There is no, like I said, no toxic mold or mold that's associated with individual health problems that would cause like a mold disease or something like that. And, very confident that there's not a mold issue or a mold health concern in that building. I know people get, there's certain trigger words in buildings and schools, mold, asbestos, lead paint, that when people hear them, they get very nervous, right? In the past, there's been a lot of issues but there are programs for remediating those things, and we do have processes and those things have kind of come up in the past in different buildings, and we correct them as they do come up. But we're very confident that there's not a mold issue or mold concern at that building.
Can I just add, because you
Yep.
jarred my memory, because I was here back in 2011, and I do remember the town also funded $100,000 to remove all of the rugs
That's
in Green
correct.
Meadow, put in tiles, because anything that's like paper or cloth, that's what mold grows on, right? So that was one major improvement the town funded. Then, as you said, they put aside $850,000 towards mostly roof repairs and other things. And so the town has been doing their thing. The other thing that was really important that you talked about was the Univent system. And I think part of the problem here is, we all know it's been brutally hot, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's recommendation number 5 from 2011 was, keep your doors closed and allow the ventilation system to work. Now, that's contrary to our thought, right? Because when you're hot, you open the door, you put a fan on, and what happens is the fan starts sucking the mold in from outside. The Univent system in the Green Meadow classroom has a filter on it, and one of the recommendations was regular scheduled checks of those filters. And so that's one of the things that we implemented, that the custodians go around, they check the filters, I think 3 times a year, they'll
correct.
replace the filter, they keep a log of that, and that's kept on file. So that was one of the recommendations that we did, is that we do have filters, so even though it's, counterintuitive to keep the windows and doors closed, allow the ventilation system to suck in air through a filter so the molds don't go in, and then there's an exhaust in the ceiling to exhaust the old air out. I know it was 1950,
55.
but it was an engineer who designed the building,
Yeah.
right? That was probably the state-of-the-art heating and cooling, or systems of that time, but it does bring in fresh air. And so that's the hard part when it's so hot, and the doors are wide open.
Yeah. And
The foyer was one of the places that hit high. Why? Because the doors are wide open, and everybody's walking through, so as they're walking through, they're bringing in, the mold is just flying around in the air.
Yeah, that's correct. And Green Meadow's especially tough because it doesn't have any air conditioning. So like at a newer building like the high school, you don't have to worry about people leaving doors and windows open because, there's climate control, there's air conditioning. All the air handlers have filters in them. And we change out those filters 3 times a year in all the school buildings. But in Green Meadow, there's no air conditioning, right? So the only time that you feel you want to get that breeze and cool down a couple of degrees is to open up a door and a window. But like Dr. already mentioned, it prevents us from being more efficient in filtering out the air. Like if you have a air handler at your house, you can change out the filter, you can see like there's a chart on there that says that it checks off like mold and ragweed and dust and allergens and different types of filter the air to different levels. So that's one of the means you take the mold spores kind of out of the air.
So Aaron, I know one of the concerns that we keep talking about is the roofing system.
Yep.
And I know last year you had me sign off on the MSBA Accelerated Repair Program.
Correct.
Do we have any update on whether or not they're going to be able to help us out on that?
Yep, actually, yeah. So 2 years ago, we applied for the Accelerated Repair Program, and unfortunately, we weren't able to move forward. We applied again last year for the core program, which actually looks at more than just the roof system, because we found that the building has multiple deficiencies, right? And what that core program does is it gives schools financial assistance. They do feasibility studies, inspections, with the end goal of either replacing the building, doing an addition, or a renovation. So we were accepted into that program, into the first phase. The first phase was a feasibility study and inspection of the building. MSBA was actually on site last Monday and did that inspection of the building. We're waiting to hear back to see if we make it to the next round. So, we've identified the need 2 years in a row now that we need to do a roof replacement, and now obviously, the entire school, and I think that one of the factors that went into moving it from the accelerated repair program into the core program was the issue where we had, found some lead paint on the exterior of the building 2 years ago. And, since we've remediated a lot of that, but, there's buildings or windows and doors and HVAC systems, and there's electrical systems and plumbing that really need to be updated. The history of that building, originally built in 1955, that oldest section, there was an addition in 74, and then the most recent addition in 1988, where they, did the newer portion that goes up the hill and then kind of connects down to where the library and then down to where the auditorium is. Anytime you piece together a building, codes change, standards change, and there's really 3 different systems in that entire building. So it makes it really difficult to stay on top of the maintenance and provide upgrades. And I know there's been concerns of, not being able to open the windows because it's too hot, and we want to put additional air conditioners in those windows like we do at some, like a building like this. But the electrical system really can't support additional load such as air conditioners. So we're in a really tough spot, and I think the school committee's identified the need to replace the building. It's at way past its end of life. School buildings are designed to last 20 years.
Okay. Other questions from the board before we open it up to the floor?
I have one on a different topic, but why don't we do,
Yeah.
stay on this one?
All right. So opening it up to the floor. Further questions for Mr. McCloskey? Yeah.
I think my main question is, they had like the meet and greet for the teachers, and we went, and there was, I don't know if anyone from the board has kids that age, but there was, I don't know, it was like a 95, 100-degree day. It was so hot in that building, and they had all the windows, open. And the next week, it was just as hot. My daughter has some significant breathing concerns, and within 10 minutes, she had hives all over her neck and her back because it was so hot. So now if you're saying that we have to close those windows and doors and the fans that they had going, which they were going everywhere, how are you going to help those kids that have breathing issues, not only from mold, but from heat, or kids that, there's a lot of kids that have trouble regulating their body temperature, that would have adverse medical conditions.
Yeah, so the recommendation to close the windows and the doors is like a best management practice to improve air quality, like with particulates in the air to allow the filtration system to work. Obviously, it's going to hinder the amount of fresh air flowing. So it's kind of a balancing act of, I think the important note is that the mold that's in the room is coming from outside the room. So if people are sensitive, like they have a mold allergy, and that's what's affecting them, to keep those windows and doors shut. But obviously, it hinders any airflow. Unfortunately, it's an old building. There's no air conditioning. I can't speak to what, I'm not in charge of school administration and staff. I can only provide best management practices and what it recommends. If the concern is mold in the air and you want to eliminate the mold spores that are in the air to allow the filtration system to work, close the door and window. But that's obviously going to hinder any airflow.
So I can talk to
it's
the
kind of a tough
administration.
spot. But.
Because I have a thought
Sure.
that might be useful, so over the next, I think, year, one of the things I think we need to talk about is these hot days, right? Because they're becoming more common. So in the summer, and I didn't keep track, my kid's here, but it doesn't make any difference. It seemed like we had 2 or 3 really hot days those 2 weeks, if I'm remembering correctly, but I won't. But like similar to the whole idea with snow days, right? And like a lot of districts are doing takeaway homework bags. So I think we need to think this year, like as one, you always like, oh, what are they working on this year? I think we need to think about like the days that we can be in school, because it's the kids, it's the staff. I mean, those buildings, and Justin teaches in Lexington, and I know
My
just
classroom
week.
that 1 week was 94 degrees.
So it's like, I think we should
So
talk about.
I feel for, yes.
I just think we should talk about like this year, because I'd like to know more about those examples, because I don't know, like, I don't think about that kind of effect, right? Like what it does to people with breathing problems.
There
So I think
were
we should think
schools
about
that were closed
Yes,
because of
there were.
heat.
Yeah, and it didn't seem like we reached that point, but I hadn't considered, it's not my call, but like I hadn't considered folks that might have trouble during the day there. So I think that that's really good feedback for us, and it ties into like, when should we be in the buildings? And I was hoping, and I think we've sort of talked about it offline, about talking about what other communities are doing to hit the 180 days, but where's our flexibility? So whether it's homework bags for snow days, or maybe these 98-degree days in the summer, because it seems to be becoming part of the norm. So anyway, just sort of a takeaway is I'd like to look at that as a policy, where, what can we do to add some flexibility?
I have one comment to add to that. So that was a concern for last year when the DPH inspector came into this building. The concern was the no air conditioning. They did an indoor air quality inspection in this building and found that it was compliant with their recommendations and the guidance that they have available online. So maybe that's a point, a piece of, I know they have a guidance document for hot school buildings specifically.
That's good to know. Yeah.
It's a good place to start. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this building has no air conditioning either.
Some areas do. Common areas, administration, auditorium, some specific classrooms we had to install air conditioning, and we're working on trying to expand that as well with some HVAC upgrades we're doing right now.
But with the electrical, the same
The
problem is
electrical
being met
issue.
out, the electrical's part of the issue, so
Yeah. Okay.
being able to handle it.
Yeah, so that's why I think the conversation, especially for that particular building, where you say it can't take any more load, like, this isn't like, let's invest in some air conditioners on an old building, this is like, I really think it goes into like, when can we expect people to be in school, staff and students?
Yeah.
So I think we should put that on the future
Yeah,
agenda.
I mean,
item
what
to
are
move on.
reasonable expectations for students being able to learn and teachers
Right.
being able to teach?
Yeah, and I heard similar comments from some parents, it's always, you never know, like, everyone's gonna feel differently, but like, should there be practice, should the kids be running? So anyway, I just think it's a topic that falls under safety and wellness, and we should definitely hit that one this year
Agreed.
with a plan for the next summer.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up.
Anything else for Erin?
Go ahead.
I sent an email on Monday, but I'm sure your email was flooded this week. And some of my questions were answered, but I do have a question about frequency of inspections and how the last one was done in 2011. And are there guidelines from the Department of Education or Public Health as to how often those should be done? Just thinking as more of a proactive measure so that we're not like reacting to, a situation.
Absolutely. So frequency inspections varies on different levels. So if it's, for instance, I have staff in the building every day, right? They're doing normal walkarounds. They're inspecting the building as they're, doing their daily tasks and assigned duties. And then we have, annual inspections where a higher level of staff come through the building and like at the end of the summer, preparing the building to open up and find out what we need to do. The level of bringing in the Department of Public Health is typically something that you only do if there is a concern, right? So if an individual has a concern, or if an employee brings up a health concern, something like that, where it's more than just a regular inspection, where you have a need to bring in a governing body to give you some guidance, that's when you bring in that type of an inspector. It's not something that they don't come out to every building every year. There's only a few of those inspectors, and they will respond to if there's an immediate health concern. So, and from the time that when we were made, the staff, school administration was made aware of the initial concern on a Friday. I contacted that inspector on a Monday morning.
I'm very happy
And-
with the speed.
Yeah, and by the time,
it was great.
and by the time she came here and I met with her Wednesday morning, she told me that she already got a call from a parent with the same concern for the same building because they saw the communication coming out from administration. So that's the kind of avenue that residents have, occupants of a building have, when they feel that there's a major concern that maybe administration's not addressing or somebody's not addressing, they'll reach out to that level. And that group specifically looks at municipal buildings and school buildings. They're not really inspecting private homes. That's more of like your local health agent from the town.
So could those yearly inspections be shared with the public?
Yeah, I mean, it's more of like, we're looking for maintenance things that come up, broken, facilities inspections, but yeah, we can communicate those out.
It just might make us feel, because I was like, wait, there hasn't been an inspection since 2011. It was
Yeah,
kind of
yeah, and that's like,
wait,
yeah.
what's going on?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
like an indoor air quality inspection. That's like,
Okay.
you're doing those when you feel that there's like a major concern. If there was a indoor air quality issue, a public health issue, you'd see widespread health concerns, health issues, people coming in more than just one individual, right? Because everyone has different tolerances for heat, cold, allergen levels. Everybody's different, but when you have a widespread kind of issue, that's when you know you have a bigger problem. You bring in those higher authorities.
I think you raise a really interesting question, though, because being in the business myself as a classroom teacher, I'm aware of how often our buildings are inspected and seeing the fire department and the police department and the maintenance teams and everybody coming through on the regular. But getting back to one of our overarching themes this year for communicating information out, I think that that's something that we can absolutely put on the list of saying, like, we've inspected the buildings at this time, like, here are the things that we're noticing, or here are the things that are the targeted items for this year. Because again, I'd rather over-communicate than have to scramble when a concern is raised. Because whether it's intended, and I by no means want to, pretend that we're intending this, but sometimes it's insinuated that we're hiding things if we're late to react. And the reality is like, we're always trying to do the right thing. But by over-communicating, if we can prevent some of that fear and that concern and that questioning, then by all means, it's worth the time.
I think it also, if we can communicate out, I know, if anyone ever saw the spreadsheet sheet that Aaron has with all the capital needs and and that they now have everything on a schedule, so they know in the buildings when they need to replace things. Like, there's a lot that's been, but it also gives you a sense of the breadth and depth of what needs to happen to make the town run and the school, and just really, it's just very sobering as far as what needs to happen. So anyways, it's
That was actually my second question. It was about standard operating procedures and how they're verified, and just making sure that those are happening, and then also being verified by someone else, and just so that we're all at ease that things are being addressed, in a timely fashion.
Sure.
Can I just so it sounds like, I just want to see like what you said, if I'm hearing it the right way. So the way you run all the facilities in all the towns, which is just PS so much better than it used to be. Your custodians in all your buildings are sort of like your first line of who's going to notice something like awry, right? Like, so of course, like a staff member or a teacher might notice something in their classroom faster. But it sounds like what you said before is like the daily, not inspections, because that's sort of like it makes it sound like they're doing a checklist, but like I think of them as like, the boots on the ground, the closest to the situation.
Yeah, and we have a limited staff as far as, number of employees versus square footage of space that we have to maintain. So our first line is really the teachers, that are in the building every day. And we encourage teachers to bring up issues as they see them so we can address them. And we're not able to always address everything as fast as we'd like, because whether it's a labor issue or a financial issue, but we do want to check up on those, make sure we get them done, then follow up back with the person who brings up a concern. So, and that's our first line, is the people that are in the building every day. I'm not in every school every day. I rely on the staff, the custodians, and we have different levels of supervision and management within the facilities division and every division in DPW. So, we're working on improving our maintenance program, preventive maintenance. We have a couple new pieces of software that the town has purchased, and we're rolling out right now. And we're trying to get away from the old paper and clipboard to get everything in a computer, in a database, and that way we can track regular maintenance, preventive maintenance, emergency situations, so we can not only know what the high needs items are, but we can determine whether we just continue to put money out of the operating budget, or when we need to reinvest with the new capital piece of equipment. So that's an ongoing kind of continuous improvement thing, and that's not I don't think this is the only district that's in that situation. Facilities maintenance and facilities and management is a newer kind of field. Statewide, there's a newer association that's been in the works for the last couple of years, and we meet regularly to collaborate and see whatever other districts and other schools are doing, and we're very similar to what other towns and other schools are doing. So, I think with the support from the school committee administration, it helps us do our job, and in turn, provide a health and safe working environment and education environment for the students.
So you're in the process of implementing a new system that's going to get away from paper? Or is that right now?
Yep,
Okay.
correct. And that's
Someone and I heard about it the other
it's
day. It's
townwide
pretty
too.
exciting.
Yeah, it's not just facilities, it's, highway, park, cemetery, water, sewer, everything, so.
It actually syncs up with the schools' systems too, right?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we've talked about maintenance, but I actually wanted to learn a little bit more and be able to understand the mold report. So I talked to Chris from the ASAP Environmental this morning, and he had told me, which I had not read or heard anywhere, that his suggestion was to clean out and replace the ceiling tiles that have water stains on them. He also said he would vacuum the school out with a HEPA filter vacuum and then bring someone in to give the school a really good cleaning. So I've done a little more research, Warren, high school in Warren was recently closed. They delayed start of school because they had to have people come in and clean. Is anything like that going to happen? Is there a timeline for replacing, the stained ceiling tiles where there's obvious water damage, or the broken tiles that are noticeable in classrooms? And then are we going to bring someone in to actually give this school a good thorough cleaning?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say, to address, I guess there's kind of three things you brought up there, right?
Sorry.
So for the, no worries. So for the carpets, we've already ordered some. I think school administration has already ordered a number of replacement carpets. They went through and identified the ones they need to replace, so those will be replaced and not just vacuumed, but the rest will be cleaned. The ceiling tiles, we will replace ceiling tiles as they become damaged and stained. What's tough about that school is that for those of you that have been in the kindergarten and preschool wing, those 1x1 ceiling tiles are extremely difficult to pull out and replace. You end up pulling one and you end up replacing like 5 or 6. You can't get them back into place. They're like tongue and groove. That's why you don't see them anywhere else, right? So like our best option without replacing that entire ceiling and putting in a new drop ceiling, which will cost significant capital funds, is to get the worst ones out of there as we can. Just because it might be stained doesn't mean that there's mold or mold growth on it, right? It could be stained from a plumbing line that's in the ceiling condensating. It could be an old roof leak. The best practice is to try to get them out of there, so we're going to try to remove as many as we can without creating a bigger issue and a bigger problem in those classrooms, because we don't want to get to the point where we're like drilling, putting sheet plywood up on the ceiling or anything like that. So that one is not as just easy as going through and pulling them down like you have, but like these ceiling tiles that are in this library right here, these are extremely easy to replace. You pop one out, you put a new one in. Those tongue and groove ones are not that easy. We wouldn't be replacing them with new tongue and grooves. As you can see, like if you go in any of those classrooms, the one that have been repaired are like pieced together. There's these type of ceiling tiles that are screwed in there. We're trying to get it the best we can with the limited funding that there is. I think if we're going to look at replacing that entire drop ceiling, that would be a large capital investment. And then you also need to look at is whether we're going to move forward with the core program to replace the building and kind of do a cost-benefit analysis on that one. So we're going to replace them as needed, as the worst ones. And what was the third thing? The cleaning of the school, right? So I did talk to Chris as well. He did mention, if there was a real need to do a deep clean and a deep scrub. So we haven't seen any active growth in the building, right? If we go in and scrub, so I think the guys do a great job of cleaning the building, but if we were to go in and hire a company to clean out the foyer and wipe it down and bleach things down, we could do that. That's a discussion with school administration. Do we think we need to do it to prevent a health and safety issue? I don't think we need to do that to prevent a health and safety issue. If that's something that the school administration decides to invest in and to do, that's something that we could do in those probably 4 areas that had the higher levels of mold. But again, there's only one area that really, or excuse me, 2 areas that exceeded. It was the front entry room and that staff development room. The rest of the areas had the same level of mold spores in the air. It wasn't mold found on the surface of anything, right? There's not mold growing on the floor, growing on the walls. It was an air sample that was done. They weren't like doing any swabs, if that makes sense. So we could go through and put like air filtration units and portable HEPA filtration in some of those rooms. That's something we could do. We'd obviously contract that out, but it's not like there was like active mold growth to wipe it down or to bleach the walls down or anything like that. The situation in Warren, I've heard about that situation. I wasn't involved in it, obviously, and I think that was a much more serious situation than the Green Meadow current condition. I wouldn't call it a situation at Green Meadow. I'd say that's a condition. So
There's 2 kindergarten rooms though that had very high levels.
they did have higher levels, but they didn't exceed what what was sampled from outside.
So they were the same.
So they did like a count of mold spores. So you look at the count that was from outside. If you have the report I have in front of me, I believe it was like 14,000 mold spores per cubic meter of air, right? And the kindergarten classrooms didn't exceed that 14,000. It was up closer to it, but it didn't exceed that number. I think the 2 places that exceeded it were the front foyer and
Yeah.
the staff development room.
So the preschool room, I was told, when I was there for each of the samplings, and the door was wide open out to the play area. And I was told that she likes to leave the door open because they're in and out all the time anyway, and it's fresh air. Well, if it's out, if it's the same as it is outside, that's because the door to the outside is wide open. And the measurement was identical to the measurement that he did right, in the outdoors. So that room, it's the same as the others. And then the kindergarten wasn't even that high, I don't think, the one in the kindergarten. And it was just the foyer, which again, both doors of the foyer are wide open, both doors to the cafeteria are wide open. People are using, people are leaving, people are coming for Excel, high traffic area, and he did say the more people are walking through, the more they're going to stir up the air.
And this isn't toxic mold. This
Right,
is
this
just
is-
Yeah, it's not, and
Environmental.
the mold spores that were found in the building are not toxic mold, they're found to, cause a health issue, right? It's the same mold spores you'd see outside, run around on Fowler Field, being out on the playground, being
Just walking to
anywhere
your
else in
car,
town.
they're out everywhere.
Yeah, yeah, it's not
And
like
there
it's
are people
black
that
mold
have
growing on the walls.
allergies to that, but it's
Right.
not the same
Yeah.
as causing health issues, toxic. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was clear on that.
As long as they don't already have a health issue. I mean, this could exacerbate someone's existing health issue.
Yeah, and
Sorry.
We'll come to you, go ahead, Aaron.
yeah, I would say that, it's important to, there are individuals who are more sensitive to mold or might have a mold disease or mold illness, right? And it's tough, you look at that as an individual health issue, right? And I think as a administration, a body, we're concerned about a public health issue, right? Because everyone has different diseases, a different level of health or, immune system, stuff like that. So it might make somebody else, one person sick, might not make the mass public sick, so. Yep.
So just so I can clarify, I'm sorry. I know, it's me, I'm a troublemaker.
You had two people behind you, but go
Oh,
ahead.
I'm sorry. So I just had a question about the kindergartners. Are they still released out the side door?
Yep.
Okay. And I know that there's been a lead issue in the past on that area, and it seems like that environmental exposure is bringing mold spores or just into it. Is it considered or a possibility that they would? You mentioned it about a HEPA filter in the classrooms, since those are the ones, and even in the preschool, the ones that you have more constant access to the outdoors right into the classroom. The kids also come in, they go on the carpets, they have circle time in those classrooms, they're younger.
Yeah, so
Do we
those,
know-
sorry.
Do people have mold allergies like in the class? Like I'm just trying to understand why we're
I know
concerned
my
about.
daughter did when she was in
regular
kindergarten, she
mold
has an
spores.
allergy,
Yeah, okay.
and she couldn't even, so her restriction, just my personal
Yeah,
experience,
yeah.
she, during spring, certain seasons, she had to stay inside because of just that exposure to her environmental allergies,
Okay.
inside was
Got it.
easier. So I know that they have some, environmental exposure to them can be exacerbated. And kids, they get that younger, they're very much, they come in, roll around. I'm just wondering that access right there to the outdoor, immediately into the classroom, is that something that can be, or they don't get released to that side, maybe they go through the front. So it limits the air quality
In and out.
changes into the classroom possibly with a HEPA filter, just for those higher areas.
So most
I
of the
can't-
classrooms on the kindergarten side we said the outside was like 1,400 parts per million, something like that.
Yeah, 14.
Most of the classrooms were actually only in the 5,000 range. They were much less than what it was outdoors. So they already are much less. We could definitely look at having the dismissal be different if we want to keep those doors closed. It's something we could consider.
I'm just thinking you're replacing carpet, but,
Yeah.
on a long term, that's the same thing. If they're coming in from, you have that concept, you're gonna have carpet that's gonna need to be replaced very frequently again anyway. And it just seems like a circle that you're gonna find yourself in. And also with just cleaning the surfaces a little bit, in those classrooms, is there a different cleaning protocol for wiping them because they do have that open door frequency a little bit more in the kindergarten, preschool, whether it's wiping down the tables a little bit more, a different chemical or bleach or whatever it is, because it has the airborne that will settle on the table, but is more environmental, not toxic, but it's still environmental allergen.
Yeah, I'm not sure of the specific chemical that's being used to wipe down the surfaces, but I can look into it. I think that's a good point, and make sure that we're using the appropriate type. As far as the HEPA filter, so each one of those classrooms is equipped with a Univent system, a filtration system that have the air filters in them. We change out those air filters 3 times a year. So if those units are running and they're not blocked with any books or any type of materials, the air is being filtered when those units are running. So that's kind of one of the recommendations in past reports is to keep windows and doors kind of closed to allow those units to work as designed, because that'll help to filter the air.
And I just want to make sure also I understand, so for teachers as being the first line of defense and facility, observations of, in their space to report something, what is their chain of command to be able to feel comfortably reporting? Is it to the principal? Is it to you? Is it to a custodian? Because I wonder if some maybe as knowledgeable person that is reported to maybe might not escalate it to, the seriousness might be taken out of context a little bit. So I'm just wondering, are teachers really empowered to go directly to you if there's a safety facilities issue, or what is the recommendation?
So there's a number of ways that issues are communicated, right? I think that the custodians that are in the building have been there for a long time. They have a lot of really good relationships with the teachers, and I can't speak for the teachers. I'm not a teacher, but I think from what I hear from my custodians, the teachers don't have any issues or problems going to the custodians to relay any issues. We have a facilities manager. He's in the building almost every day, and Tim, yep. And I know that teachers go right to him with concerns. I get emails. I see teachers. I have a good relationship with teachers. They can come right to me. Teachers also can report issues to their principal, the supervisor, school administration. So there's, email, phone calls, text messages, we get it all. So, as far as, when issues, if somebody doesn't feel like they're getting their issues being addressed, I encourage people to move it up the chain of command. Have an open door policy, email, my communications out there, or my contact information's out there to the public, so.
And this particular incident was communicated directly to a principal, and the principal went directly to Aaron, just so you know the chain of command there.
Yeah, and the issue, I think, was brought up on a Friday, and the emails were flying Friday night, and all weekend, back and forth communication, phone calls. So, in this situation, obviously, is one of the trigger words is mold, and it's very serious, and we took it as such.
I mean, I was actually probably called indoor quality, so I certainly was very happy with the response that the school had already been in contact. So I do appreciate that it was, within, a couple of days, and they were already planning to come out. So it was really great to hear that responsiveness. I do also want to echo the suggestion of having some visibility into what inspections are being done, because we know, Green Meadow is past its expiration date. And so I think whatever inspections are being done there probably should be different than frequency and what's happening maybe here or at the high school, because there are things that are breaking down more frequently. So if they're yearly, are there things that are being checked a little bit differently because the quality is, beyond its life at some point. So any information, I guess, again, just to encourage transparency and, building of, we know it's happening, I think. We want to believe it's happening. We just don't see it. And so I think that's what needs to be a little bit more visible for parents, for confidence building.
Justine, I know you tried to weigh in a minute ago, but there was a hand in the back.
I just had a couple of quick questions and points to make as well. With the leaking ceiling tiles and the stained tiles, have they taken them down and looked above to see if there's mold growth sort of in those areas where the problem originates?
Yep, we did do that, and the inspector from the Department of Public Health did that as well. So
And they didn't find
no mold,
anything?
correct. So we looked at the ceiling tiles, we looked on surfaces, the walls, closets, storage rooms, above the ceiling, no mold, no visible signs of mold growth on any surface.
And when the carpets and everything are going to be replaced, are they going to be done by a professional company that's going to seal off the space if there is anything?
So those carpets, so there's no, the carpets that are being replaced are kind of like area rugs. It's not like a carpet like it is on the floor in here. One of the recommendations from the 2011 report, when the hallways used to be carpeted at the Green Meadow School, and when the recommendation was remove that, and the school department's since done that. So the carpets that are being replaced, I believe they're the area rugs that are in individual classrooms that students sit on and do different activities. And, we're not going to be sealing off the area. We're just kind of rolling them up and throwing them in the trash. We don't believe that, again, there was no mold found on the carpets. We didn't do, testing on the carpets, but visually there was no mold growth underneath the carpet or anything like that. It's just, I think, a best manager practice to replace carpets as, a regular interval. So I think there were some that were selected, and I think next year you're going to build into the operating budget that another section of carpets will be replaced, and it'll be just an ongoing.
And, I'd just add that also the fire department makes sure that the principals know that they get fire-rated carpets. So we've been getting carpets for quite some time and replacing them for quite some time too. But, and they have to meet that standard. They have to be fire retardant.
Justine?
I'm okay.
You're okay now?
I'm okay now.
Sorry for cutting you off earlier.
Your question got answered?
Oh, that was our strategy. We don't let you in, and then you give up.
Do you want your introduction? So Justine, who is always eager to join in, is now on the Board of Selectmen, and she's our official Board of Selectmen liaison. So I look forward to seeing you at the meetings we were able to attend.
Yes.
Sure.
Sorry.
Actually, let's go to a voice. I don't think we've heard from you yet, so why don't you go right ahead?
I'm just going back to the inspection of the mold above the ceiling tiles that Heather had brought up. If the ceiling tile was removed for inspection above, why wasn't it then replaced? Because you're saying it's difficult to replace.
So
Replace.
there are some areas in the hallway that we were able to move some of the ceiling tiles out of the way, so we can get a head above there and a flashlight and do the visual inspection, then it was moved back into place. So, we try to, any ceiling tile that we can easily access to remove, whether it's stained or not it's stained, or if it's stained or if it's damaged, we'll replace it. It's the difficult ones that if we are maybe try to pull the one down, we're gonna get the whole ceiling is gonna come down, we're gonna replace everything. That's where we have to use our judgment on whether, rate the risk. Is it just an old stain, or is there potential mold growth, or is it wet? If they're wet, they're coming down, right? But is it an old stain that's been dry for 5-10 years? But there's not active mold growth on it, maybe we can move the one to the next to it and look up and see. We try to do everything like on a situational basis. So we were able to get up in the ceiling and look, and didn't see any mold growth. If we did see anything, it's coming right down. So.
And I would add, some of those smaller ones that are difficult to take out, when we have had a leak and they've gotten so wet that they basically came out, you've actually patched them with other things, but there's times when you've been able to look up and in there as well.
Correct, yeah, and it doesn't look great. I'm not a fan of those one-by-ones, and I wish we could just take them all down and replace them with a nice drop ceiling like have been done in other rooms, but it is very expensive to do that. I think it is earmarked in the capital plan, and if the budget allows, we'll do it. But then again, it's the larger discussion of how much, how many tens of thousands of dollars are you gonna put into that building if you're gonna just be replacing it in, the near future. So that's I guess a larger discussion. And I think, that's one of those, this and the lead and, any other major things are kind of just add to the list of reasons why you would replace an old building.
Are there active leaks right now?
So as I'm aware, there's not any active leaks. We looked at it, we went through this last week. There weren't any active leaks. If there were any, we'll address them as soon as we can.
We had quite a rainy, it's been a rainy summer, but even just the last week or so, it was quite rainy.
Yeah. We do encourage teachers to notify us if there are active leaks. Sometimes some leaks can't just go up there and just patch it. Sometimes they require a larger repair. So when we identify them, we try to, if there's a leak during a rainstorm, we try to identify where it's coming from. We can do a quick repair. If not, clean up the water, keep an eye on it, note it. When there's a rainstorm coming, be prepared, put a bucket under it to catch the water, and then wipe up any excess. And then we do have a number of roofing contractors that work for the town that, will run around different buildings and we make their continuous repairs. The large flat roof is very difficult to repair though, I will say that. That is an old roof that has been patched a number of times, so it's very difficult sometimes to even find the leak. Water runs on a surface, so just because you might have a leak right here, the leak on the roof actually might be on the other side of the room. So sometimes they take a little bit longer to repair, but as we are made aware of them, we make our best effort to repair them as quickly as we can.
And the 2011 report, I think it mentioned moss growing on shingles. And I noticed that just the other, I was like, oh, it wasn't on the flat roof, it was on the back side of the building where it was
So one of the things,
angled.
if you've noticed, you've been around the building, a lot of the trees came down because the moss grew, right? Because there's a lot of trees that overhang the top. So we went back and dropped a number of those trees and to take that down. And get up there with power washing as we can to try to prevent moss growth. Just only accelerates the deterioration of a shingle roof. So we want to try to get that moss and knock down.
When will you hear results from the core report?
They said week to a month, something like that. So it's gonna be a little bit. It'll be a little while, I think. Okay. I think it probably calls the questions as they come up. Yeah. Kind of just stand by. So.
Natasha.
When the inspection for the indoor air quality report is released, are they going to notify? Is it going to be be sent to you? I know it gets posted on the state's website, but it'd be nice maybe to communicate that it's.
Absolutely. They're going to email to Dr. Girardi and myself.
Okay.
And then
But
just,
then they post it on their
Yeah.
website, that's their process.
Yeah, it may take
So-
longer for them to post on the website, because they have a newer website. The entire state changed their
Right.
website. We've been on there recently. But they'll get it to us, and I'm sure Dr. Girardi will, you
Share
know,
it.
share it.
And we're debuting the new communication platform in the app. It's a great way to push the information out as soon as we have it. And that's already a dialogue that we've had behind the scenes. Like, as soon as we get the report, obviously, we want to let the professionals process it, make a plan if necessary, and then we'll communicate that out.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for questions.
Anybody
And
else?
maybe could we have another opportunity to discuss when the report is done, that we could, if there's still concerns, we could.
If there's findings of concern, yeah, absolutely. And even if you or anyone who reads the report has a question or a concern, then emailing us about 10 days to 2 weeks before the next meeting so that we can put it on the agenda and publicly post it is the perfect thing to do.
Yeah, and, you know, what was communicated to us from the inspector and what we've seen in the last report is they're really recommendations or best management practices that they'll provide us. Not necessarily something that, you know, there's like a penalty or a fine associated with if the school doesn't comply or doesn't make that correction. So that's something that I think is, you know, I don't know what's going to be on that report. I know that during the inspection, she didn't find anything major, which is really good. So I don't anticipate any large items. Probably going to be what she verbally told us: change out ceiling tiles, change out any damaged carpets, clean up any standing water, do visual inspections for mold, change out air filters on a regular frequency, stuff like that. So.
Aaron, thank you.
You're welcome.
Greatly
No,
appreciate
you
it.
have another question.
I'm on two different subjects.
Can we maybe take that offline? Is this something that needs to be discussed publicly?
And right.
All right, never mind.
No, but
Well, it
let's
was
do
about
it.
the email that I sent you about, just the solar panels we were talking about.
Oh,
solar
Oh,
panels
yeah, I can.
the other
It's
day.
a topic you
It's
love.
one of my pet peeves.
It's near and dear to it.
So, yeah, so it's
I
just
just,
a
I,
thought, that's all.
yeah, I just didn't want to put Aaron on the spot. He came here to
That's
talk
all right,
about
no,
mold,
it's
but,
just a thought.
I can,
Yeah,
I mean, I
don't
can
want
mention
you to-
something about solar.
yeah, go ahead, Aaron.
So
Why not?
So, yeah, so we are a green community, Town of Maynard is a green community. I'm the chair of the Green Communities Committee, and, you know, every year we do a number of projects. We apply for grants, competitive grants, and we've been fortunate enough to, the last, I've been here for 3 years, we've maxed out the grant, and we're over $1 million. We've received over $1 million in the last 7 years of grant funding for green communities projects. So that's to reduce our energy usage, both on the gas and electric side. A number of projects that have been done recently, we installed a new boiler at this building last season. We put a new building automation system in at this facility, LED lighting in the hallways. There's a building automation system that went into Green Meadow a few years back. The high school, we're going to be doing new LED lighting at the high school this year, LED lighting at Town Hall last year, police station last year, a number of things like that. So what they don't fund right now, or we haven't been available to apply for, was for any solar initiatives. And I know that's a big push. And when they built the high school, it was solar ready, which basically means they have conduit that runs from the roof down to the electrical room so that we can run the cabling necessary to put solar panels. There's also mounting points up on the roof for solar panels. So what we've done this year is we applied for a Department of Energy Resource technical assistance grant, which will allow us to, I believe it's $12,000 to $15,000 grant to hire an energy consultant that will help us build a RFP for basically a power purchase agreement. So solar panels for government entities, there's no incentive, there's no tax incentives, and we don't pay taxes to buy solar panels. So typically what we do is a purchase agreement, which essentially is a 20-year lease where a third party would come in, install solar panels on the roof of the high school, and then sell us electrical energy at a reduced rate than what the current private, Eversource is in Maynard, Eversource would charge us. So we could get together some type of a contract for that. So we have a technical assistance grant we're waiting to hear back from. Hopefully we can get the $15,000 to hire that engineer that'll design that RFP that'll be specific to our building and our needs as a town and a school, and get that advertised. And then typically you can build in other things, like for the solar farm on Waltham Street, where the old landfill was, similar kind of thing. We leased out the land, they put in solar panels, but also we built in that they built a dog park. So that's, you know, we could do something like that. Cool, but we'll wait and hear back on that.
The Fowler School gets a big benefit from that.
Yeah, so we get about $250,000 a year worth of electrical credits from the solar field that's on Waltham Street, and we split that up between different buildings in town. Fowler School gets a majority of that, like the fire station at one of our water treatment plants, town hall, police station, stuff like that. So to reduce the, you know, reduce our electrical bill, which is actually in a building like this size is significant. Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks for the update.
Absolutely,
Very much
welcome.
for the update, much appreciated.
Anything else?
Go
While I'm here?
quickly.
I think we're good, Aaron. Go see your family.
We got- Bob, is there anything else you want me to? All right.
Thank you very much for your help.
Really appreciate it, Aaron.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Student reps, thank you for your patience.
Hey, yeah.
They're here all night.
I hope so.
So hi. I guess the big highlight from last week was the football game, first home football game. And it was a really good game to watch, 44-0, I believe was the final score. So Maynard took home that one walking away. One of the big things, as I'm sure everybody knows here, the bleachers. I don't think that really impacted the crowd that went there. I was kind of worried because I got there a little earlier since I had to film it and no one was really there, but people started showing up like a few minutes into the game and it really got packed. A lot of people went to the end zone, which I think nobody really had a big issue with, at least for the student body, just going to the end zone, watching the game. I think the biggest problem with it was, I can't speak for the adults there, that's something else, but it was the pep band. Couldn't like do anything just because they need the bleachers to set up. I'm sure Pat.
Yeah, I guess I could speak to that. Yeah, so I believe we were instructed by Mr. Caruso to not have pep band, and he said that we could take the night off, so implying that we would probably have future games, but it has not been confirmed. Our band director is still unsure if we're going to be performing next week. He said we might do a halftime show, but we have nothing set up yet. So I personally haven't heard any updates on the bleachers, just the one announcement that Mr. Caruso made through the website, the little announcement spiel there. I know that the DPW Facilities Department put in the bleachers. I actually haven't been up there in like 2 weeks, so I don't know what it looks like, but I've heard that it's like, you know, it's the best that you can do. You can't really, everyone is not expecting the bleachers to be fixed within the year. So we know. But with that being said, moving on, unless you want to do.
I'll save what we're both thinking for last.
Okay.
If you want to go on to the food.
Yep,
'cause I
so
know
update on
Dr.
food service, definitely improvement. I have heard less complaints, people seem to be happier. The new TVs were installed yesterday, 2 days ago, yesterday, yeah, so nothing's on them yet, but we're all like, oh, I wonder what's gonna happen, so that's pretty exciting, that's all in the CAF, and I think everyone's pretty much satisfied with lunch.
Kind of going to something me and Pat both wanted to bring up tonight, and I know, let me preface this by saying I know this isn't really your guys' like
problem
here. So as you all know, the Beacon Santa Telethon, that's a big thing for WABM and most of the high school, is December 7th, I believe, that weekend. And the problem was the town, usually they have the Christmas parade the weekend before, so I believe that would have brought it to the 1st. And they pushed it forward a week to that Saturday, and obviously there's a little conflict there because that's the same Saturday as the telethon, and that's into one of the peak hours of it, especially with our auction. So the problem that a lot of the students are facing now is most of the students, or a lot of the students at least, who are in the telethon are also in the band. And
or Boy Scouts.
Or Boy Scouts, or Girl Scouts. There's a lot of organizations that are in the band. I think pretty much I'm one of the few people who wouldn't have to be in the band who's in WABM, in the parade who isn't in WABM. So that's kind of something that's going to be talked about, because kind of going off
Yeah.
more so with the band.
Yeah. As WVM, an organization, we haven't officially decided how we're going to react. We're waiting a couple days to hear back from a few people. But I know the band, our band director was kind of annoyed. So I don't think, as of now, that there's going to be a band or any WVM students going to the parade. But of course, this is a town issue, nothing that you could do. But just so you know, it does involve WVM and the band and things that
It's
you.
helpful to know, because I hadn't heard that yet.
Yeah.
Thank you for
That's
making us
more of
aware.
a, like,
Sometimes you're our breaking news, so that's
Yeah.
really.
I know,
for us to know.
Oftentimes you have great.
I know you guys are like, obviously you have no say in like when the parade is, because that's more of a town issue. But again, student concern, it's just, this is gonna be something that's kind of bubbling around. I know it's still more than 2 months away, but it's gonna be a big thing because we have to start planning. And between the telethon and the parade, there's a lot of students who are just going with telethon because something that I don't think they're also acknowledging as well. We're running on little to no sleep. So Saturday, I had only gotten like 4 hours of sleep that night. And I had been up since 7 a.m. on Friday, because obviously you still go to school and all that. And 5 p.m. on a Saturday, I'm not going to want to go outside.
Yeah.
If I was a band student, I would not go outside playing trumpet or whatever in the cold.
I hadn't, so that's.
Is it definite?
Oh,
They said they're not moving it.
our friendly neighborhood
Oh,
Friendly
I just
neighborhood
seen.
select. So I will say that I was aware that when we signed the permit, that I specifically brought up that it was that weekend and asked them to confirm that. The people who organized it would be the fire and police relief associations. So they are the ones, I would think personally, we signed the permit, but the reason we signed the permit is because it was brought before us from both of those associations who organized the parade. So that would be who, in my opinion, that's who we would go with. But I absolutely agree 100% with what you're saying, because I know the dedication that's needed for the telethon.
Well, I know, because your son, obviously one of our friends,
So who runs each of the relief associations? One of the members is also.
Sean Kiley, I think, is fire, and I don't know about the
I think it's
police.
Officer Noble and Sweeney. And the only reason I know is because
So many
last
things
year.
are like.
because Mary knows everybody.
No,
All right, I guess I'm-
last year, the Maynard Business Alliance, they actually asked us for our opinion on when, so obviously that did not happen this year. They
Yeah.
didn't reach out
Well,
to ask.
I think the theory was that Greg Hill is doing his jingle, they typically do the Jingle All the Way that day, and so they were thinking of doing like an all-day thing, so it's the Jingle All the Way during the day, and then the parade at night. I think that was kind of the thought behind it, and the telethon kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit, and like I said, I did bring it up, but I hasn't gone much further than that.
And I say this not knowing what I'm really asking, but how onerous it is to move the telethon? And I'm saying it could be
Yeah.
horrendous, I just don't know.
It's not happening.
Just for,
I assume that's why you're talking.
That's one of the
Just
most honest answers we've gotten in this room in a very long time. Thank you.
just between us being able to like register everything, and keep in mind, we have to plan a lot of stuff too, between acts and all that.
Yeah.
To move the telethon, especially, keep in mind, this also affects like all the high school, because we plan around, it's a half day that day for a reason. And that reason is because we have to prep right after school, get ready for the telethon, and it takes us a few hours. And it's so everybody can get some sleep, take a nap beforehand if they need to. And
And you guys have been doing it for 40 years in the same weekend.
Yeah.
But I know that's the way it's been for 40 years.
Yeah.
You're not the ones that are moving it all over the place.
So,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go out on a limb and just assume that we would ask Dr. Girardi to contact the different associations and just at least explain what it's doing to the students and the choices they're gonna have to make, and if there's any flexibility on their part. So I just don't wanna, I mean, it's great that you guys, but like, the Noble connection really screws.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I'm like thinking like, well, I gotta talk to my dad after this then.
Is that why he's not here tonight? Cause that's really.
No. We didn't find this out until today. Mr. Manasian told us today that they aren't moving the parade. And we're going on one or two things right now. What we're thinking, if a guy who's helping us can't do it, then we're gonna say, sorry, we're not helping you with the parade. But if he does, we're gonna try to consider it. But it's really just like, I think it's more of a fact, and kind of going off this personally, I was a little upset at that, just because we had already claimed the spot. So it wasn't just like, oh, it's every year. No, we had already claimed that weekend for the telethon. And they messaged us after they were thinking about it, and we were kind of just like, you're not going to get a lot of people.
Yeah, just a note on to what Justine said. When the town announced that it would be on the same day, we had actually communicated with someone who organized it, and they actually requested a list of like consequences if they were to not move the parade. So we gave them a list. We had a brainstorm session. I wasn't personally there for it, but I know it happened.
I was there for it. One of the big things we highlighted was the band will not be there. It's just all these kids are like on such a low amount of sleep, and some of us, like, this is our last telethon for a lot of these people. So it's like a pretty big deal, especially if you're on tech crew or a host. Like, it's one of the best experiences you can ever have. And I think that's why a lot of people are kind of upset, because now they have to like pick and choose. And I think still a lot of people are going to go with the telethon in the end of it.
I think it's extremely short-sighted on their point, because not only are kids, operating on fumes, but the parent volunteers.
Sure,
I mean, it's
That was another
They're
one of
both
the
like
things
community pillars, like both of these things, so it's tough.
that was another concern we highlighted, where one of the chaperones, Mr. Hill, he's been helping every year, and he's pretty much there for all of it. And now Boy Scouts, he's troop leader.
Right.
So he kind of has to go to that. So it kind of still short-sights us, because we still lose people regardless of whether the students can kind of pick and choose whether they want to go or not. The band, I know, kind of has that leeway, but some of the students can't, and some of the adults can't. So I think it just kind of like.
So do you know who you sent that list to, and do you know who?
We sent it to Miss Thayer, I believe.
Oh yeah, and then I think
She spoke on our behalf. We met up, all the CEOs, Ms. Manage, all of us, we met up, put our concerns together, and we gave it to Ms. Thayer, who I believe was talking about it when they were finalizing all of this.
Yeah, I think she brought it up at a board of select. No, didn't happen.
Owen's mom?
Yes.
Just make sure I heard you.
Yep.
So it could have been like maybe they're combining with the Business Alliance or something. Maybe there was a meeting that she did there. It has not come back to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
But every time I come to a meeting, I do ask the Selectman Secretary if they've talked, if they've decided. And it was kind of, I just saw the advertisement for the Jingle All the Way the other day on that Saturday, so kind of figured that was still happening.
Yeah.
I'm sorry being put in that position, that's just really crappy.
But thank you for letting us know.
I-
And then, Bob, I think you should.
Yeah,
I'll reach out.
definitely.
Yeah.
Please, on their behalf.
Thanks.
And it's going to be our dissatisfaction. Not that, it may not help this year, which would be great if it did, but even just for their future planning, I think they should know
Yeah.
how many people are taking on this decision. Like I said, I just think it's very short-sighted.
I think all we want to just express in the end of it is just like, I'm not trying to say like, oh, fight the power or something like that. I'm really not. I just want like, we're trying to express kind of just a legitimate concern we're having, because it's not like this is some like small high school club event. Like, this is the whole town gets involved in this. Like, it's the Beacon Telethon. It's plastered everywhere.
And
And
how much money do you guys raise?
last year we raised 34.
Over 30,000 every year. Over
Yeah.
$1 million
About
over time.
Yeah, $1 million.
Over 30 years.
We hit $1 million
2,
2 years, 3 years ago,
Yeah,
3 years ago. We hit $1 million. So we just really, we're kind of in between a rock and a hard place with this one. So how it gets resolved, I'm not sure. I think this year it's gonna kind of just be a rough year for it. And again, just personally, I'm just a little upset. This is my last telethon, so I kind of just wanted it to be like the best one I can make it. And this just kind of makes it harder, I guess. And again, I know I said it like 3 times already, but like not your guys, this isn't your guys like fault or anything. It's not your guys' problem. I know you guys don't have like power in this one. I just want to say this is going to be like a big thing you might be hearing from students later.
I know, it's a small enough town, we should not be having these
Yeah,
conflicts.
but honestly, it's really good that you tell us these things,
It
because
is really good.
we'll let them know that we're
Yeah.
not happy.
Thank you.
So, I'm sorry you're going through that.
Appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys.
See you guys 2 weeks.
Okay, we need to change a date on the school calendar.
Yeah. I'm recommending that we revise the 18-19 calendar to change the early release day on 5/3 to 5/10. This early release day has been aligned with the high school prom in the past, and unfortunately, it was a misunderstanding, but we've reviewed this with all 3 principals. They're okay with this change for all 3 buildings, so it should work out. So I'd recommend that we make that change. Does that sound, so again, it's tradition, right?
So I'll motion to approve the change for the early release day from Friday, May 3rd to Friday, May 10th. Motion's been made and seconded. Questions or conversation? All in favor? 4-0. Citizens' comments. Hi, Natasha.
Just to piggyback on the change in the calendar, so is that going to be an amended calendar created
Yes.
for, and that will be communicated out?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, terrific. And I just wanted to echo, I know Officer Mancuso was here earlier. I think it's really great that she's able to be available to all 3 schools. And as just the cybersecurity part, I was really excited to hear that. So if that could be shared at some point as well.
That's a great idea.
Just because it sounds like it's coming in October, just so parents can either prepare their kids for these conversations or just be aware that when they come home talking about them, kind of have that dual support would be great.
Yeah, as soon as we get the date finalized, we'll push it out. Yes.
Does that mean that the prom is on the 10th, from what you said?
Yeah, that's my understanding. Colleen, you know? Yes.
And I had a question, what is going on with the bleachers? What's the,
So I wish we had
end
asked.
result for this?
Yeah, I wish we had asked when Aaron was here. It's because he's really dealing with this for the town, and I know the town has been looking at this. My understanding is that there's just some inspections that need to be done and maybe some minor repairs, and they should be open. So I wanted to let you know that. I think Principal Caruso gave you the night off before he knew that they were going to move some smaller bleachers over just in case they didn't open up. So I think those are now in place so that you guys will be playing. So I wanted to get back to you. I was going to do that after, but my understanding is that there's just some inspections and that they should be reopened. But I don't know for a fact, and it's not my area.
Yeah.
I would rather rely on the town's DPW.
If I could, and I do want to caution you that everything that I'm about to share with you is with a small measure of salt. I talked to Mr. Caruso the Thursday night of the Maynard Youth Soccer Night for the women's varsity soccer game. And he said it's a joint decision that's being influenced by both our town administrator and our insurance company. So that's why there's this additional layer of inspections and everything that needs to occur before we can reopen it.
It would be nice to have a time frame, I think.
I completely
Whether for
agree.
you guys or maybe the town. And,
I
you know
spoke
what
with
mean?
Aaron this week, and they are still waiting for, to book a company to come out. When I talked to him earlier this week or last week, there was a company that had to come out and do some inspections, so it wasn't as quick as we want it to be, but he's doing it as fast as he can to have it done.
Just because, I mean, there's only 5 home games, so there's 4 left, and these kids, this is their last hurrah, so.
I couldn't agree with you more. You know, it was an unfortunate set of circumstances that brought us to this point. I wouldn't wish for that to happen to my own children by any means, but now we just have to let the process play out. I think we could ultimately find ourselves in a much stickier situation if we were to push the process or move without making sure all of the boxes were checked. So the words that I kept hearing from both Mr. Caruso and other people that I talked to about it were the words "out of an abundance of caution." And I have a hard time arguing against that. But I'm completely in agreement that there are only X number of home games, and it's a very big deal.
And on the way in, actually, Aaron did say he was optimistic it would be sooner than later. That's the best time frame I can get you, but he was optimistic, so that's a good sign.
Other questions? Hi, Natasha.
Hi. So I was wondering about the open principal position at Fowler, and I know right now Jen is kind of doing double duty a little bit, and just wondering the status. Are we in a holding position waiting for another time? Are there active candidates being looked at? And are we going to continue with the model of 2 principals, or is it considered that it would go back to a vice principal model?
So we reposted again after the last round of interviews, which were at the absolute worst time, 2 weeks before school is now when people are thinking about getting a new job. And my understanding is that we've gotten a significant amount of candidates, that the Charles Gabron is handling the interview process as he's done in the past, and that there will be interviews coming up soon, hopefully by the end of the month, so that we can get somebody in place. And then it will be a principal of curriculum instruction assessment, because that's the model, and we have a principal of leadership under operations already, so that is the position that's been posted. There's significant candidates. The interview process should be starting soon. Colleen, do you know what date? Was it the 27th?
It's the 27th, they're looking at the applications, and the 3rd all day.
So I think the very same committee that had gotten together earlier for this position has been called back, and we wanted to give them the opportunity to have a second chance at interviewing and going through the process. But it's moving forward.
And just to add, or since you've expressed that they're going to continue with the same model, I know some people have asked about the benefits of that model. I know at one point it was created because we were cutting a person and we had someone split between 2 schools, but now that we have 2 full bodies at each school, questions have been raised as why we're paying 2 principal salaries versus going back to the conventional principal, vice principal model with maybe a little bit of savings on a vice principal salary.
So the model wasn't put in because we were cutting. It just so happened that we were cutting, and we thought that model might actually help us be more efficient. So I think we still believe that it's a more efficient model in getting things done, as far as making sure that the dialogue around instruction, to improve instruction and to work collaboratively, still is robust and has the opportunity to take place. And by separating out those positions that way, we believe it's more efficient. We've gotten some positive feedback on that as well. So there's a lot of difference of opinions on that. As far as the salaries, when we put those positions in, our salaries are lower for principals than other places. And so our principal salaries are closer to assistant principal salaries, so it's not like we're spending more money on administration than other districts with 2 administrators in the building.
We have a smaller budget though, right?
What's that?
We have a smaller budget though, so I mean, we should have, I mean, we wouldn't be comparable to some other areas anyway, typically, like surrounding town. We wouldn't want to be comparing ourselves.
No, but in general, our salaries are lower, so that's the answer there. But we do believe the model's working well. There's been a lot of positive feedback about it. So,
what kind of feedback have you received that's positive?
teacher feedback, yeah, to the teacher leaders and the teacher leaders to the administration.
I recently found out that in the cafeteria, I'm assuming in all the schools, that, this sounds trite, but that styrofoam trays are used. And I was utterly appalled by that. It just seems like such a terrible, terrible choice, especially in this day and age, and we're teaching our kids about what's important. And I was wondering, how long has that been in place, and is there any change coming?
I was not aware of it, so we can look into it.
It's the first I've heard of it as well.
Styrofoam trays?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a picture that someone took recently, it was on one of the websites about the
Just need someone
meals.
brought it up, you know?
It hasn't come to our level.
But yeah, like I've never heard that. I'm
Yeah.
not saying it's false. I'm just saying
Yeah,
like.
oh.
In
my
season,
kids have to
my
grab
kids buy
something.
lunch a couple of days a week, and Anna and Lucas have never mentioned that to me. But
So
I can
one-
ask about it.
So one time I picked up Zariah early, this is at the end of last year. I forget what the issue is, I think she was ill, or maybe she forgot a lunch or something, I don't remember. Anyway, I had to go pick her up, and she was eating lunch that they had brought her. It was a weird circumstance. And it was on a styrofoam tray, and then later I asked her, is that what the tray normally looks like? And she said yes.
Okay.
So, I mean, this is going off of an 8-year-old, but at the same time, I did save the tray that she had that particular day, so.
Okay.
No, we can check it out. If you
But
can
that was
check it
last
out.
year too, so that's interesting. I didn't-
Yeah,
And,
because you've
right,
changed.
and I asked her, because the changeover with the food
Yeah, yeah.
services, I was
Right.
really hoping that that would be a
Right.
changeover
Yeah.
as well. And I asked her, and again, this is me just asking my own kid, I have no idea, but she claims that it's still the same.
Okay.
Probably makes sense. I mean, it's just, we'd have to look
I
into
mean, I'm
it.
Yeah,
assuming it's the cheapest thing, but what an awful, awful
Yeah,
choice.
I'm greatly bothered by it as well. Like, I don't like that in the slightest.
Whenever I see styrofoam, like even takeout containers now at restaurants, I'm like,
It's
why are you still
disgusting.
using styrofoam?
I usually refuse to take
I agree, it is kind of,
leftovers
it is
if
one of
it's
those,
styrofoam.
it's a smaller thing, but it's becoming bigger in our world and society. It's-
Yeah.
Is there something that we could do if that is actually what?
That's, we'll have to look into it.
Yeah, I'd have to look into it, talk to the food service company, and then have them give the school committee a report.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good.
It's a good place to start. All right, members' comments and questions? I've got nothing.
Let's see. We had our first, Mary and I had our first meeting with the members of the Board of Selectmen and the members of the Finance Committee. There are Justine was there. So what we're doing, which is a long promised thing with a lot of people going back almost 10 years, you have to get everyone to agree to do it, is the 3 boards send 2 representatives, sort of have high-level discussions about the budget overall. What we can bring, what our challenges are, which are almost always the same: special education costs, transportation, out-of-district costs, charter costs. So our stuff doesn't really change, but it's a good way for us to explain it, and they can ask more questions and we can explain it. We can also talk about the town budget from a high level, and hopefully find ways to loosen up things enough that departments are getting closer to what they need every year. And that's not just us, that's police, fire, water, so everybody. So I'm really excited for that. So it was a good kickoff meeting. After that, we had an internal budget subcommittee meeting, which is the superintendent, the business manager, Mary, and myself, to sort of have our kickoff. And it really goes to the idea that we really do work on the budget almost all year long. I think we sort of maybe take July off. But yes, I mean, I tell people all the time, like, I'm on school committee with the budget. Like, I'm a nerd, I'm a budget nerd. I don't know what the kids need, but I know we need money to do it. So that's what I get excited for. So that's me in a nutshell. And I'm excited to work with Mary because we haven't really worked on anything. So yeah, so that's been great. So lots of budget talk already. So.
And I did it last year, and so it was that was the first year, I think, that we actually did this kind of scenario. And it's just great because we're all in our own silo, and so it's really great to have everybody be able to speak about what the challenges are, and like Dawn said, for us to really explain what the challenges are and educate, and vice versa, too. So that was really good. So, and then I just had one really positive experience today. Many, but this one really stood out. The Ed Foundation, on a different hat, we came and met with Mrs. Haywood this afternoon. She's the librarian here, because she had asked for a grant, and one of so there's all the electives that the middle school kids have this year that they were able to apply for, and so she is doing literature of different genres, I think is the title of it. And she actually has 200 kids at Fowler that are taking that class, and she is so excited about it. She said almost all of the 8th graders are taking this elective. So she said some of them chose it as their first, second choice. Some of them ended up with it, because that's what fell into their schedule. But she's really excited about it. She said the kids are really excited about it, so I'm thrilled that we've got these electives now.
Yeah, it's a
that
new energy.
the students can take.
It's hard to schedule because it's like the high school.
said
I mean,
that.
every year, the high school takes a couple of weeks to get the schedule figured out. That's what happened at Fowler,
That's what
because
she
it's
said.
like
She
the
said
high school
she's
schedule,
got a different roster every day,
but
yeah.
there are huge benefits, and it's great, especially to see our kids focus on literature and their love of
It's a
love
great
of reading.
class. Like, I remember reading the choices. It's not, it's not for waves for us, but it just sounds awesome.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
it's
it's
really,
pretty
really fun.
cool. So I just wanted to share that.
Cool. No?
No, I do have some things.
Oh, okay.
I'll make them really quick though. There are two things. One is positive. One is, first of all, just this time of year, there's so much going on and so much, everything's gearing up, and I'm sure everyone is feeling it. But it also reminds me of all like the good things that it's cool to be able to feel like there are so many offerings for all different kids, and being able to try to continue to find ways that we can make that happen is just great. But that being said, I have a second grader at Green Meadow and a child of Fowler. So the second grader is doing typing. And the reason why I bring this up is because the kids have to type in order to do their, is it going to be MCAS? Their MCAS exams. And if you're dealing with trying to type and figure out typing, it makes it a lot harder to actually take the exam because they're all on computer. So I just want to mention that because it was something that we've been working towards, trying to make sure the kids are getting in and doing. They're doing that now through their computer science, and that was really nice to hear, because it was you just don't want that to be the reason why the scores aren't what they could be.
It
Us-
went with
us-
that, but
And then the other thing was, I just keep hearing on all different spheres of the public domain, budget squeezing and budget cuts, and they were talking about why our college is so expensive, and saying how 3 to 4 decades ago, public colleges were like the premier institutions, even internationally, and now they can barely scrape by because their budgets are being squeezed and squeezed and squeezed.
There's an assault on education.
We were talking. It wasn't even just education. It was in the realm of like police departments. Like I forget all the realms in which it was being discussed, but it was really kind of across the board, looking at public service and that as an issue. And it just did ring very true for what we are dealing with, and which isn't just a Maynard issue, but is a larger issue that we have to deal with in very real terms. But in any case, I want to mention that as well. That's it.
So notifying the board, but also for members of the community, Natasha, you'll remember this well, a couple weeks ago, at the start of our calendar year, I had to apologize for a failure in communication and failing to follow through on something that the board had promised as far as filling the open seat that Mauro now sits in. So Dawn and I worked with Stephen, our Director of Technology, and we now have a new digital platform known as ThrillShare, which will allow us to post to multiple platforms simultaneously through one app. Previously, different people within the district had access to the different platforms. Other people knew how to post things on the website. Now we've streamlined that process. Dawn and I will be the conduits. Right now, we are the only two from school committee that are set up, because it seemed appropriate for the chair and the vice chair to do that. So we will be the funnel of communication. But that also goes for members of the community. If you have things that you would like to make us aware of, that you think the platform would be well suited for, please reach out to us and communicate that to us, because we now have a one-stop place to push information out on the website, the app, the Facebook, the Instagram, everything that we have. You just select which platforms you want it to go out on. So hopefully that will help resolve some of the issues that we've had previously with either getting information out in the wrong manner or on the wrong platforms, or not in a timely case or whatnot. So we heard the feedback. We worked with Stephen. He found us a really great way to get it done, and I'm looking forward to starting to use it. So.
That made me realize that policy,
I'll come to you, I swear to you.
I will, just love me. We're going to be meeting with, start meetings for policy subcommittee, and we also have curriculum subcommittee. Mauro and I are on both of those. in the policy, one of the things we're gonna tackle that we had talked about was recording and setting up a policy for when, for replacing a member, because it was such a difficult thing to figure out what needed to happen. So it's recorded, and
all
then
of-
we have it.
Yeah, because all of the information was just housed in different silos, like the Commonwealth has advisories, the
Right.
Massachusetts Association of School Committees has advisories, the town charter has advisories in it, and
They
trying.
won't all agree.
Yeah, exactly.
So if we have one place where it is, then we'll have it for, and then we won't have, hopefully happen again, what happened, that was.
That'd be great if it was nice and clear and.
Yeah. We tried to do it right, but clearly we could have done it better, so.
So I wanted to follow up with Bethlehem because one of the pieces that you're talking about as far as the budget's being squeezed and that at the state level, I reached out to Kate Hogan and to Jamie Eldridge to see if they can come to one of our next 3 meetings. So we can talk to them about our challenges and they can talk to us about the state level and that kind of thing.
When I talked to Jamie in mid-August, he expressed an interest in coming out, because I pushed him pretty hard on funding.
And one other thing I just wanted to mention, just because I saw the high school notes that were sent out, it reminded me to just, there was some conversation about the student council starting up, and I just wanted to remind them if they could look at the policy at the high school of the 7 absences per term that we discussed.
Yeah.
That students can have versus 5 at Green Meadow and Fowler.
It's 5 in my district.
For the entire year. Yeah, that would be great if you could just remind them to take a look at that. I would appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Turn that over later.
Hi.
Justine.
What Bethlen said earlier, it just triggered something that I actually learned last year, and I wanted to thank the school district and the school committee for when they did the MCAS this past year, that they might have sacrificed some of the scores, but they did have all the kids do the MCAS on computers.
Yep.
Because I do know that there were towns that didn't. They only did the required ones. And I think that this is going to set us up better in the future, and it gets the kids used to it, and it also showed some of the bugs in the system so they can work on it. So I actually really wanted to thank the administration and the school committee for doing that.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second? All in favor? Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Can I put something in your